Terrorism is one of the most pressing threats to global security, affecting nations, economies, and countless innocent lives. Over the past few decades, extremist organizations have carried out deadly attacks, spreading fear and chaos worldwide. From September 11th to more recent acts of terror, governments and security agencies have continuously worked to combat this menace. Terrorism not only causes direct destruction, but also fuels political instability, economic downturns, and humanitarian crises. Many countries have strengthened their counterterrorism measures, leading to the capture of some of the world's most notorious terrorists. Yet, the fight is far from over. Among the many captured terrorists, one stands out as the most dangerous and notorious prisoner in the world. This individual is responsible for orchestrating large-scale attacks, causing mass casualties, and spreading terror across borders. Their influence extends beyond prison walls, as their ideology continues to inspire extremist groups globally. Authorities have gone to extreme lengths to ensure they remain in captivity, placing them in highly secure facilities with strict surveillance. The story of this prisoner is one of violence, pursuit, and ultimate capture. Their rise to power within a terrorist organization made them one of the most wanted criminals on the planet. Security agencies from multiple nations collaborated for years to track and capture them, leading to a high-stakes operation that finally brought them to justice. However, their imprisonment does not mark the end of the threat. Many of their followers still seek their release, and some extremist groups use their name as a rallying cry for further violence. This terrorist prisoner's case raises significant questions about global security, counterterrorism policies, and the challenges of dealing with captured extremists. Should such individuals be executed, or is life imprisonment a more effective deterrent? What impact does their incarceration have on the organizations they once led? Most importantly, how can the world prevent future threats from emerging? In the following sections, we will explore this prisoner's background, their crimes, their capture, and the ongoing consequences of their existence behind bars. Their story is a chilling reminder of the dangers terrorism poses and the continuous efforts required to combat it. The world's most dangerous terrorist prisoner did not rise to infamy overnight. Their journey into extremism began years before their capture, shaped by a combination of radical ideology, political unrest, and global conflicts. Born in a region plagued by instability, they were exposed to extremist beliefs from an early age. Over time, they became deeply involved with terrorist networks, rising through the ranks due to their intelligence, strategic thinking, and ruthlessness. Their criminal activities span decades and multiple countries. From planning and executing large-scale bombings to orchestrating deadly attacks against civilians, military forces, and government institutions, their name became synonymous with terror. Some of the worst atrocities attributed to them include mass casualty suicide bombings, targeted assassinations, and hostage crises. Their ability to inspire and recruit others made them even more dangerous, as they not only committed acts of terror themselves, but also radicalized thousands across the world affiliation with terrorist organizations and their goals. This prisoner was a high-ranking leader in one of the world's most feared terrorist organizations. Their group aimed to establish a radical ideological state, overthrow governments, and wage war against those they considered enemies. Using a combination of propaganda, cyber warfare, and brutal violence, the organization spread fear across continents. The group's objectives extended beyond mere violence. They sought to disrupt global stability, create divisions among nations, and weaken economies through continuous attacks. They targeted not only military and government institutions, but also civilians, including women and children, to instill maximum fear. Their use of modern technology, encrypted communication, and underground financial networks made them difficult to track, allowing them to operate in multiple countries simultaneously. The story of their capture and the countries involved. After years of evading law enforcement, this terrorist was finally captured in a high-stakes international operation. Intelligence agencies from multiple countries worked together, tracking their movements through satellite surveillance, informants, and cyber intelligence. Their capture was not an easy task, as they constantly changed locations, used disguises, and had a network of loyal followers ready to die for them. The final operation was executed with precision. Special forces from multiple nations launched a coordinated raid surrounding the terrorists' hideout. After a tense standoff, they were finally apprehended. Some of their closest allies were either killed or arrested in the operation. The prisoner was then transported under extreme security to a maximum security detention facility, where they remain under 24/7 surveillance. Their arrest was celebrated worldwide, seen as a major victory in the fight against terrorism. However, it also sparked backlash from extremist groups that viewed them as a martyr. The world continues to monitor the situation, as their imprisonment has not entirely eliminated the threat they once posed. The world's most dangerous terrorist prisoner is currently held in a top-security detention facility designed specifically for housing the most high-risk criminals and terrorists. This prison is located in a highly classified location, with only select government officials and security personnel aware of its exact details. Some reports suggest that the facility is one of the most secure prisons in the world, comparable to places like ADX Florence in the United States, Guantanamo Bay, or a secretive military black site. The prisoner's confinement is unlike that of ordinary criminals. They are held in complete isolation to prevent any form of communication with the outside world, as even a single message from them could potentially incite violence or mobilize terrorist groups. Their cell is a reinforced concrete unit with no direct access to windows or any materials that could be used to escape. The conditions of their imprisonment are intentionally strict to ensure they pose no further threat to global security measures in place. Given their status as one of the most dangerous terrorists, the prison employs multiple layers of extreme security measures, including 24/7 surveillance. High-definition cameras monitor the prisoner at all times, with guards watching live feeds from a secure control room. Restricted movement. The prisoner is not allowed to move freely within the facility. They are escorted by multiple armed guards, even for medical checkups, biometric access, and sealed doors. Every entrance and exit within the prison requires fingerprint and retina scans to prevent unauthorized access. Soundproof cells. To prevent them from passing coded messages to other inmates, their cell is completely soundproof. Limited interaction. Only a select number of interrogators, psychologists, and security officials are permitted to interact with the prisoner, all under strict monitoring. No internet or communication devices. They are completely cut off from the outside world, ensuring they cannot spread propaganda or issue orders. Armed response teams. A specialized rapid response unit is stationed within the prison, ready to intervene at any sign of a security breach. Prisoners' rights and treatment in custody. Despite being one of the most notorious terrorists, international human rights laws dictate that the prisoner must still receive basic humane treatment. However, their rights are significantly restricted due to the extreme security risk they pose. Basic necessities. The prisoner is provided with food, water, and medical care, but all items are carefully inspected to prevent potential threats. No outside contact. They are denied family visits, letters, or phone calls to ensure they cannot communicate with anyone outside the facility. Psychological monitoring. Due to their extremist mindset, they are regularly assessed by psychologists to evaluate their mental state. However, rehabilitation is considered nearly impossible. Legal representation. While they may have access to legal counsel, even this is monitored under strict security regulations. Any legal proceedings involving them are conducted under secrecy to prevent leaks of sensitive information. No religious or ideological gatherings. Unlike other prisoners who may have access to religious or communal activities, this prisoner is entirely isolated to prevent the spread of their ideology to others. The level of security surrounding this prisoner reflects the global threat they once posed. While their capture has removed them from direct involvement in terrorist activities, their mere existence still fuels extremist groups, making their continued imprisonment a matter of international concern. How has the prisoner's capture affected global security? The capture of the world's most dangerous terrorist prisoner was hailed as a significant victory in the fight against terrorism. Intelligence agencies and security forces across multiple nations worked tirelessly to track and apprehend this individual, whose actions had caused immense destruction and instability. Their arrest disrupted ongoing terror plots, weakened their organization, and sent a strong message to extremist groups worldwide that no one is beyond the reach of justice. However, while their imprisonment removed a key leader from the battlefield, it did not eliminate the broader threat of terrorism. Many terrorist organizations are structured to survive the loss of individual leaders, and in some cases, their deaths or arrests even serve as a rallying cry for followers. The prisoner's capture led to an increase in propaganda efforts by extremist groups, portraying them as a martyr and calling for revenge. Some groups attempted to carry out retaliatory attacks, targeting governments and civilians to prove that their cause remained alive. Additionally, global security agencies had to remain on high alert to prevent any attempts to free the prisoner. There have been past cases where terrorist organizations have taken hostages or carried out large-scale attacks to negotiate the release of their leaders. As a result, the prisoner's capture, while a short-term victory, has required continued vigilance and enhanced counterterrorism measures worldwide. Has this arrest helped in the fight against terrorism? The prisoner's capture undeniably weakened their terrorist organization, as it removed a key strategist and public figure. Intelligence gathered during their arrest led to further operations against their network, resulting in the dismantling of certain terror cells and the prevention of future attacks. Additionally, the arrest discouraged potential recruits, as it demonstrated that even the most powerful terrorist leaders could be caught. However, some experts argue that the impact was not as significant as initially hoped. While the organization suffered setbacks, new leaders quickly emerged to take the prisoner's place. Extremist ideologies do not rely on a single figure. They are often deeply rooted in political, social, and economic grievances. As long as those underlying issues remain unresolved, terrorism continues to find new recruits and leaders. Moreover, the arrest sparked debates about how to handle captured terrorists. Some nations called for the prisoner's execution, believing it would serve as a stronger deterrent. Others argued that life imprisonment was a more effective way to prevent them from becoming a martyr. The debate over the best approach to dealing with high-profile terrorists remains ongoing. Political and legal challenges surrounding the case. The imprisonment of such a notorious terrorist has not been without controversy. Several legal and political challenges have emerged since their capture. 1. Legal jurisdiction disputes. Multiple countries were affected by the prisoner's actions, leading to disputes over which nation had the right to prosecute them. Some governments demanded extradition, while others insisted they be tried in international courts too. Human rights concerns. Despite their horrific crimes, human rights organizations closely monitor the prisoner's treatment. Concerns have been raised about solitary confinement, lack of due process, and potential violations of international law. Some activists argue that even terrorists deserve fair trials and humane treatment, leading to heated debates. 3. Threat of retaliation. Governments that participated in the prisoner's capture have faced increased threats from terrorist groups. Some nations had to strengthen security at embassies, airports, and other high-risk locations to prevent potential attacks. 4. Classified information and transparency issues. The details of the prisoner's case, including intelligence gathered during their arrest, have been classified in many countries. This has led to accusations of government secrecy, with some critics arguing that the public deserves to know more about the case and the security measures in place. 5. Political exploitation. Different political factions have used the case to push their own agendas. Some leaders highlight the capture as proof of their strong counterterrorism policies, while opponents question the effectiveness of global anti-terror strategies, arguing that focusing on individuals rather than addressing root causes will not end terrorism. Conclusion. The prisoner's capture was a turning point in global counterterrorism efforts, but it did not mark the end of the fight. While their removal from the battlefield was a significant achievement, terrorism remains an evolving threat. The ongoing controversies surrounding their imprisonment highlight the complexities of handling high-profile The future of the world's most dangerous terrorist prisoner remains uncertain, but one thing is clear: they will remain a subject of global security concerns for years to come. Given the severity of their crimes and the threat they still pose, it is highly unlikely that they will ever be released. Governments and intelligence agencies understand that even a single message from this individual could reignite terrorist activities. One possible outcome is that the prisoner will live out the rest of their days in strict isolation, completely cut off from the world. Their influence may diminish over time as new extremist leaders emerge, but their name will likely continue to be used in propaganda by terrorist groups. Some security experts warn that as long as they remain alive, they will be a symbol for radical followers, inspiring future generations of extremists. Another possibility is that legal or political circumstances could change, leading to calls for a trial or further punishment. Some nations may push for the prisoner to face the death penalty, arguing that executing them would prevent any risk of future threats. Others may advocate for continued imprisonment under extreme security measures, fearing that a public execution could turn them into a martyr. Will they be released or face a harsher punishment? Given their status as one of the most dangerous terrorists ever captured, the chances of release are extremely low. Even in cases where prisoners are exchanged in high-profile negotiations, it is unlikely that governments would ever consider releasing someone with such a deadly track record. However, there have been instances where terrorist groups have demanded the release of their leaders in exchange for hostages or in response to violent attacks. If such a scenario arises, world leaders would face a difficult decision. Refusing to negotiate could result in innocent lives being lost, while agreeing to a deal could set a dangerous precedent. A harsher punishment, such as the death penalty, remains a debated topic. While some countries believe execution would permanently eliminate the threat, others argue that it could backfire by turning the prisoner into a martyr for extremist groups. The decision will likely remain in the hands of political leaders, security officials, and legal authorities, all of whom must weigh the consequences carefully. Lessons the world has learned from this case. The capture and imprisonment of this terrorist have provided valuable lessons in the fight against global terrorism. 1. No terrorist is beyond the reach of justice. The successful operation that led to their capture demonstrated that even the most elusive and well-protected criminals can be brought to justice through intelligence, cooperation, and persistence. 2. Terrorism is bigger than any one leader. While their imprisonment weakened their organization, it did not put an end to the ideology that fueled their actions. The fight against terrorism requires long-term strategies that go beyond capturing individuals. 3. The importance of international cooperation. The capture of such a high-profile terrorist was only possible through the collaboration of multiple nations, intelligence agencies, and military forces. This case highlights the need for continued global partnerships in counterterrorism efforts. 4. Balancing security and human rights is a challenge. The case has sparked debates over how high-risk prisoners should be treated. While security is the top priority, governments must also consider legal and ethical implications to avoid violations of international law. 5. Counterterrorism efforts must evolve. The prisoner's ability to evade capture for years exposed weaknesses in global security systems. As technology and tactics evolve, governments must continuously adapt their counterterrorism strategies to prevent future threats. Final thoughts. The story of the world's most dangerous terrorist prisoner serves as a chilling reminder that the fight against terrorism is ongoing. While their capture was a major victory, it was not the end of the struggle. As new threats emerge, governments and security forces must remain vigilant, learning from past experiences to prevent future attacks. The prisoner's fate remains a matter of global security and legal debate. But one thing is certain: their actions and imprisonment have left a lasting impact on the world, shaping the future of counterterrorism policies and strategies.